I am a former CIA analyst. You might know that if you listen to the show, you follow any of my work, but it's been a long time, and I haven't been in the agency in years. Going on a decade now, because I've been doing radio for almost 10 years. So I can tell you what it was like then, and that it's clearly just continued in this trend of wokeness that so many other corporations and entities and government agencies have. But just when you thought maybe they would have a little bit of a change in their approach, the official CIA YouTube account put out this video. This is a recruitment and PR video. But here's the kind of stuff that they're now promoting at the Central Intelligence Agency, which I'll tell you, because I'm honest about this stuff, there's a lot of paperwork and lattes at the CIA. You know, there's a lot of sitting in meetings, and you got a lot of people with soft, stubby fingers, worried more about their overtime and, you know, how soon they can get on the highway to get back home to, you know, their 60 minute drive to get in or whatever. I mean, it's not as glamorous and sexy as the James Bond stuff. You already knew that, but I'm just telling you. There is some really interesting stuff that goes on. There, if you want to do cool stuff in the CIA, it is possible, but you will constantly be surrounded by people that don't want, that think that excellence is suspect. That's the best way I can put it to you. And that being mission first in a real way is something that makes people uncomfortable. You're supposed to go along with the bureaucracy. And because it is a bureaucracy, you have a lot of authoritarian leftists who spend all their time policing Hatch Act violations. Oh, you said you like Ronald Reagan as a joke in a meeting. You're not allowed to do that. You know, and just generally harassing you. So that's really the mentality that you see in a lot of the agencies. It's just true. There are leftists that run the CIA, leftists that run the State Department. And I'm sorry, but it's the truth. And actually, no, I'm not sorry. The leftist mentality is inherently not as patriotic as it should be, and in many cases, anti-patriotic. And I know that's tough to hear because there are a lot of these federal agencies and institutions where you'd think, shouldn't we have super patriots working there? We should, but we don't. A lot of people that believe in critical race theory, a lot of people that focus on diversity and inclusion as the primary mission. You know, you've seen some of the stuff even in the United States military now, hurting military combat readiness because of a politically correct agenda. And, you know, they'll trot out someone, they'll get some 4-star or some retired 4-star, even worse. We're just politicians. And they're all just trying to get on the board of Raytheon. So do you think that they're really worried about whether we're going to win the next war, or are they worried about their stock options and being corporate friendly? These are speaking the truth, friends. I know some people don't want to hear it. A lot of you are nodding your heads, though, especially if you actually served. You're saying, yep. A lot of politicians with stars on their shoulders, just the way it is. And the same thing is, it's even more true at the agency. It's even more true at the CIA. You got a bunch of leftists running around who view the CIA as, because it has a reputation for a kind of intellectual elitism, which is largely undeserved. Again, I'm telling you the truth about these places. It's very hard to get a job at the CIA, and I was stunned by how much mediocrity there was there. There were pockets of excellence. So, there are people, and I have to say this because I don't want you to get the wrong impression. 10% of that building do 90% of the work and are the reason why you can sleep safely at night, so to speak. And I don't just mean CIA. I mean the whole intel community and anybody working in it more broadly. It's 1 in 10 people that are just there to do the job and stop the bad guys and beat our opponents. And then it's, I'd say, 6 out of 10 who are just showing up, do what they're told, get a paycheck. And then 3 out of 10 are Bernie Sanders loving leftists who think that the intelligence community is racist unless it focuses first and foremost on diversity and inclusion. I mean, it's a big chunk. And you see this from the latest Humans of CIA video put out from their official CIA account. This is a guy who's an agency librarian, which is a thing. There is the library in the CIA. Here's what he talks about his view of being a member of the CIA mission.
I always struggled with the idea that I might not be able to discuss my personal life at work. Imagine my surprise when I was taking my oath at CIA and I noticed a rainbow on then-Director Brennan's lanyard, which I later learned was designed by Angle, one of the many employee resource groups here at the agency. I remember being stunned. Since then, however, I've learned that far beyond the resource groups, inclusion is a core value here. Officers from the top down work hard to ensure that every single person, whatever their gender identity, race, disability, or sexual orientation, can bring their entire self to work every day.
Yeah, that's what's really important here. Talking about bringing your gender identity to work with you every day, not stopping the Chinese from dominating the globe or stopping the Russians from shutting down our pipelines, stealing all of our intellectual property. I'm just wondering, at what point is it too much? Can we all agree that that it is human nature and it is in fact a moral position to in certain jobs? I'm not going to say all jobs because people will fight with me over that. Fine. In some jobs, you really just want the person who has the greatest competency. You want the greatest competency possible. You say, what's an example of this? You are going to find out in a week whether your spouse survives a very serious brain surgery because of an aneurysm. Do you care if the brain surgeon is somebody who got the job because of diversity and inclusion, or do you want somebody who got the job because that person had the highest possible MCATs, the highest ratings as a resident, and then, in their specialty, and, what do you want? And I would put to you that the CRT lunatics would say it's racism if you don't agree that we still should take into account a person's gender identity, skin color, or anything else in this process. Or, that it's an ism of some kind, racism, sexism, transphobia. I don't care. I'm telling you, if it is the true and objective belief that a person who is a transgender female living a polyamorous lifestyle from, name any country in the world, if that individual is the best brain surgeon for my loved one, I swear to you on all that is holy, that is who I would want operating on my spouse. But what I don't want is, the super genius doctor named, John Smith or something, to be pushed aside because, we gotta have more inclusive brain surgery residencies here at the hospital. And no, that's a central fight, a central challenge now in society. And people, white liberals on this issue, are enormous frauds because they'll look at you right in the eye and they'll say, no, it's not. That's not right. I don't agree with that. I think it's not true that you can't have the absolute best while changing standards for diversity and inclusion reasons. They will fight you on this. But this forces you to believe something that is illogical. If all that matters is competency, that's the end of the sentence. That's the end of the conversation. If competency plus diversity and inclusion is what matters, you can't say that all that matters is competency. This is just a simple function of logic. But as we see with so many other things with Democrats and leftists, logic is the enemy. Reason, truth is in fact the enemy of building the society that they think is more equitable. And that's how you have at the CIA people who are announcing how proud they are of the fact that the CIA is now recruiting people with an eye to making sure that they have a broad representation of gender identities and that there's a I always want to know what is the proper balance of racial and ethnic diversity in a federal institution like the CIA. Because quotas are not allowed. Because then it's too clear that you're going to make decisions to hit those numbers. You can't have quotas, but so then what's the proper amount of diversity? And people who say this is just a principle that doesn't influence hiring decisions are either ignorant or wrong. They absolutely influence hiring decisions. And I've had conversations. I had conversations actually with a person who was in the federal government who was trying to get rid of an employee, but that employee fell in a protected category, and it's basically impossible. And that person told me if I had done the things that the person in the protected category had as a federal employee, my butt would have been terminated a long time ago. This is the reality of what is going on. And I'm bringing it up because, you may think that, okay, we can sacrifice the CIA and the intelligence community to the PC gods and still be okay as a country. You feel that way about the military? Because that's happening too. You feel that way about, as I said, brain surgeons, modern medicine, where the difference between the very best and just okay is actually the difference between life and death. I think that this is where we have to really push back and understand what kind of a country we want to live in, what kind of a society we want going forward. Do we want a place that rewards competency regardless of race, gender identity, or any other characteristic, which is going to mean that, yes, you're going to have people who are from minority groups, from different people who are trans, people who are members of the LGBTQ community, who are at the absolute top of their fields. And everybody will know that there's no other considerations involved. And so we can all understand, we can all agree that competency is the driving factor. Or we can have one where the left gets to play their social engineering games and people suffer. National security suffers. Military readiness suffers. We see there's plenty of evidence about this. They don't fight back. They don't fight this critique with evidence, though. They fight it with slanders. You're a racist. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a transphobe, whatever it may be. They just attack people to silence them. Feels pretty Stalinist. And if you look at the history of the Soviet Union, for example, you'll see that Stalin's fixation on power at the expense of those who were competent below him led to some pretty disastrous stuff when the Soviets were actually facing a determined enemy like the Germans. When you hollow out your officer corps because you're executing everybody all the time, turns out your competency takes a nosedive. And that was a major problem that Stalin faced, certainly in honestly both world wars. But he wasn't in charge in the first one. So that's something to keep in mind as well, that competency has long-term implications in a society. And by the time we figure out, oh, wow, you mean the Chinese are just building the most effective intelligence and military apparatus possible and not sitting around giving people diversity lectures? Be too late when the left figures that out. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.